Hello, everyone, and welcome to All the Way Down, the podcast. This is episode 4. We are talking again a little bit more about just the games we've been playing, whether they be recent or super fresh in the memory or not. I guess some awful experiences can leave lasting scars, so you don't really need to have played them recently. So I guess we'll start it off. I think mine is going to be a little bit lengthier than I thought it was going to be. So if you'd like to start with the game you've been playing, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So I did not play More Bravely Default 2 this week, so you can all be spared that. Well, let me talk about actually a game I played a little bit ago that I've been dying to tell someone about. There's this little Steam game called The Wizard and the Slug that is awesome. I think it's made by one guy. I want to say it's one guy that did all of the artwork and coding and story and soundtrack and stuff. But even though it is like a platformer, it's kind of really most heavily a story game, I think. It's interesting because like I saw it on Camel's channel at first, and when you first look at this game, if you're to look it up, kind of the first thing that you see is, oh my god, the graphics are kind of terrible. And like the artwork is really simple and not like outstanding. It looks like a super cheap game that would be $2 and only exists to generate Steam cards for some kind of weird back end money laundering or something. I don't know, so that's like initially what it looks like, right? But so you play as the Slug, and then right away you meet this wizard. And the wizard, he actually looks kind of cool. His design is charming and nice, which is good because his name is Charm, the wizard. And so you start off. It's kind of it's a platformer, right? So you play as this Slug, and the main gameplay mechanic is like the size of the slug and how that affects what's going on. You are kind of Slug. And if you get hit down into medium-sized slug. And if you get hit again, you turn down into tiny slug. And if you ever get hit while you're tiny, you die. But if you sit there for a second, eventually you grow and you grow. It takes only a couple seconds to regenerate your health. Now, here's the kicker, though. So you have an attack, but you attack by throwing out part of your slug body. As in, when you attack, you essentially take damage because you go down one size in order to throw a ball that attacks, right? Also, that's how you double jump. So when you jump, you can double jump, which it shoots a ball downward like an attack, and you lose one size, and you do like a double jump. So it's pretty interesting the way that it's like you can't just mash attacks at enemies because that reduces you down to 1 HP, and that's risky, So it kind of becomes about like timing out your shots to get bigger again between each of your attacks and stuff. And then like that's how like it limits your double jumps that way. And the other kind of neato thing about it is that there are certain platforms that behave differently depending on the size of your slug also. There are things that you bounce off of if you're small, but if you're big, you fall through them. So like sometimes you'll come up across a platforming thing where you'll want to be big so that you fall through a couple platforms, and then maybe you double jump over to another one that now that you're small, you bounce off of it because you're small, and that kind of thing. And yeah, so the platforming is pretty fun, and the combat is like pretty fun. The whole game has definitely a bit of looseness to it, though, where like it's not like Wings of V or Bloodstained, like super hyper precision, It's pretty loosey-goosey as far as like how it actually feels. But it definitely feels good enough to where when there's some precise stuff happening, you can hit it, if you play well, and it feels good and it feels rewarding.
I guess at this point
But
we should mention though that this you said this is a platformer.
yeah,
I looked up what the gameplay kind of looks like, and it looks like it's going for like legit old school NES art style platforming, it looks really good. But I can see what you mean by this animated GIF file. These like all super loosey, like floaty, kind of moving over somewhere.
yeah, it's kind of floaty, right? Exactly. So what happens when you play this game though? It's kind of crazy, like just how I mentioned that like the very first impression that everyone is gonna have is why isn't this game $2 because of the artwork. But when you get playing it though, the first thing that really stood out to me when I saw it on somebody's stream, the thing that stood out to me and was like, maybe I should get this game is the writing. Like, this game is legitimately hilarious.
Oh, good.
As in, like, yeah, like there's lots of dialogue. As you're platforming around, there's plenty of like cutscenes. There's lots of like little characters that you run into. Some of them you run into a few times, and man, the writing is hilarious. Like the game is like I feel like there aren't very many games.
Is it like G-rated kind of, or because it looks looking at the artwork, my first thought is Happy Tree Friends. So I think like super cartoony Newgroundsy kind of style, but the game style, the gameplay is not like that. Maybe even just like the slightest bit in the color use. It's like a bright pink and blue Happy Tree Friends squirrel kind of art, but like you're saying it's hilarious, but is it actually like kids kind of hilarious, or is it
No,
adult
I think
humor?
it's like it's hard to say, as in like, okay, so when I say it's adult humor, that doesn't mean it's like sex jokes. It just means that it's like it's a very nuanced humor that adults will find funny, because it's not just slapstick for kids, it's not just meme jokes for kids, It's like legitimately clever, well-written, funny jokes and stuff. Which like I don't know. I maybe it just hits my personal sense of humor really well, but yeah, I found myself laughing while I played this game way more than most games that I play ever.
It's good.
So that really stands out at first. Like it's super super well written. But then like as it goes on, there is this kind of B story that's happening that is also like legitimately compelling. Like it's like there's some really good serious dramatic dialogue that's written for these people, that you're kind of getting a little taste of as you go. And so as you go, you're the slug, but the wizard who's with you, Charm, he's the one carrying most of the dialogue. When you run into other characters, he's the one who talks to them the most. And well, you're a slug, you don't talk. So he's the one who speaks to him. He's the one who's like in these B story cutscenes and that kind of thing. And it's really kind of his journey and story that starts to unfold.
Is the story anything kind of like, I don't know, when I hear the title, or when I hear the name, The Wizard and the Slug, that's the name, right? The Wizard and the Slug. Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is some kind of weird story sung by Jethro Tull. Like, it sounds like a Jethro Tull song, but I guess it looks a little bit more childish.
So it definitely puts on that air like early on, but the further that you get into the game, I found it really fascinating the way that like the further you get into the game, the more the serious tone of it kind of starts to take over. And the more you start to like really care about the wizard character himself, because as the game goes, you start to kind of learn a lot about him as a character, and he's very like, I think that this game is a perfect example of like how characters need to. I'm trying not to spoil things that are specific, but like. He's a perfect example of a character who's flawed but very likable, you know? Like, he's super likable, just the way that he talks and how funny a lot of the cutscenes are.
So he's like Iron Man before any character development whatsoever.
But, like, as you're going, though, you start to realize, like, the flaws that he has and the way that he thinks and stuff. And it becomes like really, really compelling, and you start to, I don't know, I found myself like really attached to him as a character, and those kinds of things were really good. And like the further you get into the game, I feel like the more the drama starts to kind of show itself more and more. And at that point, because of all the comedy early on and because of how genuinely well written everything is, I think the drama stuff that happens at the end, like, it really nails. And so by the end of the game, I just started to notice like first of all, how much I cared about the characters and how much I cared about the story, you know? Like, that was really driving me. But then also, like, the difficulty was getting into a really good spot where I think that if you're into precision platformers, I think this game is overall easier than some of the other big precision platformers out there. Like, I talk about Wings of V all the time. It's not nearly that hard, right? Overall, it's easier. But near the end, it is starting to be like a really decent challenge, and some of the designs of the levels are really neat and cool. And but then also you're like, oh, also the artwork is getting better. Like, the later stages of the game look a lot better than the earlier stages, and the soundtrack seems to be getting better. Maybe like the later music in the game is better than the earlier music. And by the end, it's like the whole thing is just like, holy shit, like, this game is super solid.
Yeah.
And then I can't stress enough, though, that it's really like the story and the writing that really, like, it crescendos really nicely.
There's an emotional element to it, I assume.
Totally. Like, the ending is super, super good. And
you know what that sounds exactly like? Not necessarily the platformer elements, but it reminds me a lot of when I played Valiant Hearts. You ever played that?
No, I haven't.
I want to say it's Ubisoft. It is a platformer puzzle game slash, I guess, adventure, if you can throw it in that category. But it definitely okay. It starts off with this it's not so very kid kind of friendly, but it's a cartoony look at what it would have been like if you were a 2D character in World War I and in Europe as it's about to start and happen. And then it goes along the different story narratives of the different characters, but like there's not really any super solid dialogue at all ever. It's just like a series of like cute little grunts and just like when you select something on the screen, and then or there'll just be like a German soldier will just be babbling in German, stuff like that. Really super charming. The puzzles were pretty good. Our mutual friend Dying Camel played it on the stream. He hated it. Not to be expected, but he actually probably caught more bugs in that game than I've seen anyone have in their run. So I that's a fair judgment for his experience. But I didn't have too many issues. But it seems like they kind of follow on the same path of just like cutesy, but like, oh shit, this got heavy.
Yeah, and on that note too, like one kind of last thing that starts to show itself later in this game is like there's definitely a deep, well thought out world behind the story that you're seeing, you know? You're seeing the story of the wizard and the slug in this one little thing, but especially toward the end, there's a lot of just stuff going on in the background that speaks to a world that will definitely be able to tell more stories, you know, like some interesting background elements. And that actually is something that is going to happen. I believe there is a sequel planned for the game also that's going to be a different story in the world. And I'm really excited for that because yeah, on top of as a self-contained thing, this game being really good, there looks to be a lot there to expand upon also. So
Can I ask you a question?
I think yeah.
Would you argue that it is a retro styled game?
I mean, yeah, I would.
Yeah,
I mean, it's you load it up, you play through it, it's fun, and then if you liked it, play through it again. There you go.
Yeah, just in case we needed to justify talking about new games as retro people.
This game ain't no live service.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I looked into the developer a little bit, and the thing that I'm saying about the writing kind of makes sense because what I kind of got out of
Who developed it?
like
Sorry.
Silkworm Games, I think was the name of the company.
Okay.
Let it be known, though, actually, quick aside, correction for last week, Bravely Default 2 is not developed by Silicon Studio. They did make Bravely Default 1, and they made Bravely 2nd, but they did not make Bravely Default 2. That was made by, I think the company was called Claytech Works or something like that.
Yeah. And you're right, this game is developed by Silkworm, and it came out of October 2nd of last year.
Okay,
but what I'm seeing is all the reviews so far from like just on the side panel of the site are mostly 2 out of 5. How would you? Not that we're going to be rating games or anything like that, but if you had to rate it, do you find that accurate?
No, I think the only thing that I would look at this game and be like, yeah, that could have used more work is the artwork. But dude, I would also say that early on the soundtrack isn't like stellar. It's only fine, But then later in the game, there are some jams later in the game.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it though. I mean, the story like really, really does a lot for me. The gameplay is fun. It's got boss battles in it that are fun. And hell yeah, dude. The concept is also interesting. Just like the way that attacking and double jumping uses the same resource as getting hit. The way that like health isn't so much of a concept in the game, but rather it's like the size of your slug. I think that's super unique and interesting, and it works out really well.
Okay, so it's kind of like Spyro. You'll have, at least in the classic sense. Did you play Spyro? I think you said you didn't, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. So it's your form changes. Like you get a dragonfly when you have a hit point. You get a golden dragonfly that's all like glowy and buzzy when you have 2 hit points. Kind of like Crash Bandicoot, where Crash Bandicoot had his normal face, and he could have the Uka Uka mask, and that would prevent him from dying on a single hit. That sort of thing. Yeah,
I think it was Aku Aku. Uka Uka was the evil one from Crash Bandicoot.
That's
Warped.
true. Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, essentially that. So you're just a bigger slug.
Because like in Crash, when you get the 3rd mask, then it becomes like the star in Mario, and then you lose it afterward. So like the idea of like what is your health is kind of played with in a gameplay stance as well. Or like in Mario, the way that when you're big, you can crush blocks, but when you're small, you can fit through smaller areas.
Yep.
So even though it's technically your health, there's also utility to both forms, It's like that idea, but sort of made into like an actual main mechanic that you deal with a lot more. And yeah, I think it's really interesting, and it's used well in the world. There's also it's one of those games where there's a lot of secrets, tons of like little secret things to find with extra cutscenes and stuff that are great.
A lot of Easter eggs.
There's some unlockable, there's an unlockable ability. There are unlockable abilities throughout the game, and even one that's tied to secrets and stuff, so you get rewarded for secret hunting and all that. So as far as that, whoa, what did you do to me on the video?
I believe it or not, I tried to get rid of all the green.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a 2 out of 5 game. This game is fucking baller, dude.
That's good.
I would really recommend it, and I'm super pumped to see more from this developer because I think he's got good ideas for game design, and he's got a hella good idea for a world to make games take place in. And there was one other thing that I forgot.
Well, you mentioned how the game really made you feel like you weren't the center of the universe. It was kind of like you felt like kind of minuscule in the universe. What was the universe exactly like?
So it's been a little while.
It sounds
so
a little it sounds a little like kids cartoony Rick and Morty.
I think it definitely has a look to it that you could say that. As in, like, a lot of the characters in the game were silly, kiddie, cartoony type characters. There's like a banana man that you run into a few times. There's actually several fruits that you run into several times. There's the banana and the orange are like rivals that you keep running into, and they're mad at each other all the time. And they have a whole, like, you know how there's A stories and B stories, right? They've got this like G story way back there, that has an entire arc throughout the game. But yeah, there's like, you run into some cats and some dust mites, and you speak to them. So there's a lot of that kind of silly stuff, especially earlier in the game. And then later, when stuff starts to get more dramatic, though, there are like a couple races of beings or species that are more fantasy and I think more original also. Like there's like a species of bird people. There's a whole bunch of like elementals, of different forms and that kind of thing. And they seem to have a whole like political system behind the game, or behind the scenes that, and that's what I'm saying about there being like kind of a deep lore. I kind of hate using that word, but there seems to be a lot of lore behind the scenes, that has to do with like the elementals' relationship with each other, as well as the bird people and all that. So again, later in the game, it gets a lot less kiddie feeling.
My favorite lore is lore that is just completely irrelevant. Like it doesn't even it doesn't matter. It's just up. They made a point to throw it in there. Like I was thinking, if you're talking about you hate using the word lore, but I'm thinking the best context I've ever heard the word lore being used in is like. Well, I won't go into specifics, but you know what I mean.
Sure. So yeah, lastly, when I looked into the developer a little bit, it kind of sounded like it makes sense that the writing is so good, because it kind of sounded like he mostly came up with this world, came up with the story, and like a game was just the most favorable thing for him to put the story into as far as mediums go. So it kind of sounded like the idea of it being a game came after the story was already written.
I'm not seeing anything else by Silkworm on Steam. So yeah, is it their first game?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, I would 100% recommend checking it out. Like I can't stress enough. For the first half, it's fucking hilarious. You will laugh more than most games make you. And the second half, then, legitimately compelling, dramatic, suspenseful. It's awesome.
Nice. The Wizard and the Slug on Steam. I think it's at $9.99.
Sounds about right.
Not bad. My game has a little bit of a storied history. My game is Shenmue 3. Shenmue 3 is not a retro game, but it is the continuation of the long anticipated continuation of a retro series. The retro series was initially planned. Well, the Shenmue series was initially planned on the Sega Saturn. I think if I want to say the main character Ryo Hazuki, I think he was developed as part of a Virtua Fighter character, like a Virtua Fighter character is kind of a lot like this character, and I think Yu Suzuki wanted to create a story narrative kind of focused game where the idea was to feel completely immersed, and he wanted to use the assets he had, I think. So he would go from Virtua Fighter. Yu Suzuki, if you guys don't know who that is, pretty huge figure in Sega of Japan. He's responsible for a lot of stuff. Shenmue being like, just one of the things that he did.
You mentioned Virtua Fighter. Isn't like the fighting engine in the first Shenmue based on the Virtua Fighter engine?
The fighting in Shenmue is loosely based off of Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter is actually a highly technical fighter. I haven't had the chance to play it yet. I really want to, but it manages to do way more with way less. Like the buttons are like punch, kick, block, and everything else is based on movement, timing, pacing, area, everything. It's crazy. But the reason I wanted to talk a little bit about Yu Suzuki was because he's known for a lot of different shit. As a director, a producer, Virtua Cop, Virtua Fighter, Virtua Fighter 2, Afterburner, like a lot of the old school Sega arcade things, he is known as like playing a huge part in. Like Hang On, Space Harrier, Outrun. Like if you're any into retro games, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but he wanted to
Outrun, I think, is the big one for me. But also Afterburner, was that that was a Sega thing?
Yep, Sega's AM2, I believe. I want to say AM2. I want to say is the division responsible for doing like a fuck ton of stuff like that.
Afterburner on NES was one of my big games growing up. So yeah, I didn't know it was a Sega thing because I've always thought of it primarily as an NES game, just because that's what I had.
Yeah,
I did play it in arcades once though, and I'm guessing that's probably more. Might have been back when.
Yeah, because Sega has always been like arcade focused over anything. It's just not the whole world market didn't get to see that. But yeah, AM2 is Yu Suzuki's team as well. Virtua Fighter, Outrun, Virtua Cop, Daytona USA, Virtua Striker, Fighting Vipers. I don't think...
Dude, I played so much Daytona USA.
Yeah.
My neighbors had a Sega Saturn growing up, and I always wanted to play Daytona USA. You know why? There's a very specific reason, and this is just how my child nerd brain worked, was that, like, in Daytona USA, you could play the game in it was like first person, but you couldn't see the whole steering wheel or anything. You just saw the hood of your car on the bottom of the screen. And when you got into car accidents, the hood of the car would actually crunch up and stuff, and that damage on the car that you could see from first person just fascinated me as a
and they
kid.
were like
so
NASCAR, like stock cars too. So it's something you were already used to seeing, and they're like, "Oh shit, this has realistic physics and that's Yu Suzuki essentially." And then he goes, "Hang on, I want to essentially create a life simulator," and so he gets to work on the Sega Saturn. I think they find out pretty early on in development that it just couldn't handle the ambitious project. So they kind of bench it until the Dreamcast is out, and the Dreamcast is what they went with. Dreamcast handled it, but I still think there were some technical limitations that the team faced from the get-go, and this is like a launch title. So they're hitting the glass ceiling right away. But it didn't manage to like be bad. Like everyone asked me, okay, legit, straight up, should I play Shenmue? And I say yes. Is it good? And I don't answer. It's because like Shenmue, I'm talking about Shenmue 3, but the beauty of it is the double-edged sword of it is that every Shenmue game is a Shenmue game. So you play one game, you kind of play them all. It's just you're missing the story of it. And then that's also the real problem. So Shenmue 3 is a game that was developed in Unreal 4, and It definitely looks like it. Now that I know after our conversation, I know what we can identify with elements of Unreal now, but it looks like it, and that's not to say it looks bad. It actually looks fucking beautiful. Shenmue 3, the environments are gorgeous. The humans, I'm gonna fault this way more up to the design team and not Unreal, because it's okay. You have to understand the context of Shenmue. Shenmue is like the spiritual mother-father game of the Yakuza series. The Yakuza series is known for having incredibly, like it's a cartoon in real life essentially. So it's kind of like that, except way toned down, because that just didn't exist yet. So there are definitely cartoony elements to it, and things that'll happen that wouldn't seem like they'd be in real life, and then the game makes it way too painfully apparent that it's trying to be a life simulator essentially. Like, it's the only game where I've looked at the environment and go, oh my god, this is so beautiful and realistic looking. I'm gonna run to the other edge of the village right through here, like maybe just like a 20-second run to the edge of this village, and by the end of it, I'm actually literally starving to death. I can't move. I'm stuck, like not even walking in place, just like slumping in a certain direction and not moving but advancing. And then Rio just talks to you, narrates to you, the player, going, I won't be worth anything if I don't eat. I'm going to be useless if I don't eat something. And it's just like, dude, so you have to like get down to the economy of how much money, how many health points per dollar can I get, because you have to eat in this game. It's the only way you recover stamina aside from just going to bed at night. And this is by far the worst part of this game. This doesn't exist in the prior games. The prior games had no problem with this, but in this game specifically, the stamina system.
So what you're describing is that when you run in town, it reduces your health.
When you run, it reduces your health. When you walk,
what is this?
When you exist, it reduces your health.
Fucking Lunar Dragon song all over again?
I haven't played that, but I imagine there's a reason I haven't even heard of it. But yeah, dude, the first two Shenmue games do not do this. This is just kind of their way of making it more lifelike in 2021. They made a game. This is a team fully capable of making Yakuza, and they make Shenmue, meaning they make every last piece awkward, ill-timed, not properly localized to English, and honestly, like they did what Valve won't do with Half-Life 3. They left you on a cliffhanger with a story and didn't do anything for like 20 years. And then all of a sudden they come out with something. Valve doesn't have the balls to do that, and they did that. And they made it as a fan service game. Yu Suzuki himself has stated that he thinks another Shenmue will happen, but it's not going to be like Shenmue 3, which is a very fan-centric game. Like, so he's very self-aware that he made a game that's super awkward, very weird, way too in-depth on certain things, and way too awkward on the things that it should be doing right. And man,
okay, so let me ask.
Go ahead.
The awkwardness, the weird dialogue, and the ill timing of everything, those things were present in the first two games, right?
They were, but that's what I'm saying. They wanted to make the game like that. They wanted to make it not like Yakuza and everything like Shenmue.
Yeah.
And to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, if you've never seen or played the first Shenmue, you essentially, I'm not going to spoil the story, but you are Ryo Hazuki. You are the son. I actually want to say you might no, you're not. You might be adopted. I can't remember. But you were the son of the head of the dojo in your town in Japan called Yokosuka. and you come home from being a high school delinquent, like street fighter kind of brawler, bully kind of kid. You come home one day and your dad, you witness your dad being murdered by a weird looking dude from China with a ponytail. And
but now you are also from China.
no,
though,
you're
right?
in Japan. You're a Japanese family.
Oh yeah. I suppose Ryo is a very Japanese name. Okay,
Ryo
go on.
Hazuki. Yep. His name is Lan Di, or Lan D, as even Corey Marshall, who's the voice of Ryo Hazuki in English, will say. He streams, by the way. Shout out to him. He's cool. He you witness this guy killing him using some crazy martial arts. I'm talking like this is an actual like real dramatic happening, but the plot is a 70s kung fu movie. Does that make sense? So like
Yeah.
you're seeing the plot of a 70s kung fu movie villain unfold right in front of you, kills your dad, leaves in like his V12 Toyota Century, a limousine with a driver, and then you go, what the fuck was that? I'm gonna chase after him, and then like your brother and your mother go, no, you will die. And so you're this high school dropout dude who doesn't go to high school. You essentially play Ryo Hazuki. You want to uncover who Lan Di is, where he's going. You eventually find out he has like mob connections, like with the triads and with the Yakuza too, I think. And it gets into like mysticism and things get real deep, and like the whole just keeps going further as you play the game. But the whole time you're playing it, what you're doing is you're going around town, you're walking around town, you're going, oh shit, I need money, I need to go to the docks to see if I can find a job, because I gotta follow Lan Di. I need money. I gotta see where he's gonna be leaving soon. He's taking a boat. I gotta go get a job. I gotta go fucking drive an elevator, god damn it, a forklift, and move shit around because it's a loading dock, it's a shipping place. And then you're living the life of someone. You say, oh shit, I got info about the guy. I gotta meet him at this part of town at a certain time. And you go to that place in town, and it says the hours of that business that are open, and it's open, and you have to wait. You don't really there's no fast traveling. There's no hand holding at all. In order to find out where you need to go, you need to talk to the town people. And you got to do the right dialogue and everything. And yeah, eventually it's a real slow burn experience, and eventually you'll get to bits and pieces of combat, and it's going to scare you every time, because a lot of them start off with QTEs, and Shenmue QTEs are the fastest, most brutal QTEs of any I've played, meaning that they're the best QTEs of any QTE game ever.
Okay, real quick. I want you to describe to me in like intimate detail what these QTEs look like.
Whoa, shut the fuck up. Triangle right now. Down or you're going to die.
But hang on, like where is it on the screen? How is it being shown to you?
Very quick beep, very quick flash.
So there's a beep,
like it'll go twing, and then it'll put up the thing, and then you have to hit it. But like it won't flash. It'll be on screen the whole time that it's there, that you need to hit it, that it lets you. Yep. But that window of time is very small compared to like God of War.
So where is the button? Is it like a icon in the middle of the screen that's all 4 face buttons and just one of them is lit up? Or
it is one
like the
single
button is over the guy's
one single
fist
button
that's coming at you?
No, one single button in the center of the screen,
right in the middle.
X, triangle, down arrow, left arrow. It doesn't show the whole scheme.
Okay.
It just throws a button at you, and you got to guess what it is.
Gotcha. But it's always right in the middle.
I believe so. Yeah, it's never. It doesn't follow.
These are very important details to me.
Well, I'm assuming you're asking because maybe it's like that in Yakuza, which is probably a pretty cool detail.
No, it's just sometimes games like I feel like sometimes they present their QTEs in ways that are like distracting you from what you're supposed to be doing. Like Like, I'll say, like, God of War gets around this. God of War makes the 3 specifically, makes the QTEs really quickly identifiable, because if it's a triangle, for example, that's the top face button, right? That triangle will appear at the top of the game screen, and the whole top of the screen will have like they call it what like a vignette effect or whatever, when it kind of fades, right? So when you just see the top section of the whole screen kind of darken a little bit, and there's something there, you got to hit triangle without even having to look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, other games like Eve of Extinction for PS2 give you like a fucking sentence on the screen that says like press button really big, and then under it is the button that you gotta press. So it's like a little bit too much information for your brain, like, because there's words that you're supposed to read, but then under that is the symbol that you're supposed to press, and so then you gotta identify which one it is.
It's way too busy.
What I mean?
Yeah.
No,
yeah. This is just pure QTE, and honestly, I don't think Shenmue is the first game to do QTEs, but I do think it's the first game that I've ever played that did them really well. You can contrast it to games like I'm not going to remember the full title, but I think it was a Marvel game, because the first video I ever saw about this video game was the very beginning. We were playing Thor, I think, and Thor had just like done like a leap, like an arc of a leap, jumps up, and you get a QTE at the top of the leap telling you to do an attack on the people right here where you're going to land. But you see that the action's going nuts. It's building. You're Thor. You go jump. You go, oh, and then like you're right at the top, and then like the whole game tries to build all that, like just that tension. It just, time slows, and then you realize that this is a cinematic effect, yes, but it's also there to give you time as a beginner to realize what button to hit. And then if you don't hit it, it just keeps going and slowing and going and slowing and stops. And the whole game will literally become silent. The audio track will finish. It doesn't loop. It's not designed to loop. The whole thing just goes black, and it just stopped.
I can't stand QTEs like that, because it's basically like, okay, so you're showing me a cutscene right now, right? But arbitrarily, it's like the game is arbitrarily just going and it's pressing the pause button for you, and then it's randomly assigning what the play button is, and you gotta, oh fuck, I gotta get
here's a movie with some work.
And, okay, this time the play button is this button.
Yep.
Like, fuck off.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate that too. It's bullshit. And God of War was definitely guilty of that, I think.
I don't think God of War is
not as guilty.
I'm talking specifically like QTEs that you can't fail. So there's no reason for it to be there, you know? It's just pausing the game, and you have to press the button to continue it instead. I don't automatically hate QTEs. There's a few like defining characteristics to them that I think can make them be done well. Like one thing is, I feel like one really important thing is to directly relate the button that you're pressing to an action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of the time this is done right. But it's like, when that QTE comes up, you should know as the player what's going to happen when you hit it, because that's the action that you're performing, whether that's dodging something or hitting an attack or that kind of thing, right? An example of a game that doesn't do this well is Indigo Prophecy with those fucking Simon Says parts.
I love Indigo Prophecy, though.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Indigo Prophecy has reasons to play it, but like, you know what I mean, where it'll come up with like a sequence of things you have to hit on the analog sticks, and so you do it.
Yep.
But as you're doing it, you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
think that makes a QTE a lot less effective.
Where it's like, okay, shit, I have to evade this cop. Both sticks outwards, and then circle them down, and then up inwards. Okay, now to the next scene. It's like, whoa, what was this? Yeah, I totally get the confusion over that. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then I got a few other
without getting too far into QTEs. I just want to say with games that take their QTEs to the point where you're basically playing Beat Mania, it's I don't know who those kinds of games are for because I can't
Totally.
get past them. I'm not one of those kinds of people.
I don't automatically hate QTEs, but there's a lot of things that make me hate them, and for sure that's like how they can be implemented poorly. You know,
I will say
there's a few things that make me like them though.
I will say Shenmue does a good job of what you said. It does a good job of kind of relating the inputs of the QTEs to the action happening. Like you're mostly going to be doing directional D-pad inputs when you're walking across a tightrope beam kind of situation. You're mostly going to be doing up, down, or triangle, or X, or whatever the corresponding Xbox or Dreamcast controller input's going to be when you need to duck or jump, when you're running or chasing after someone and they're just throwing obstacles in your way. It does a really good job of that. I would say the worst thing the game does a good job of is managing. Well, hang on. Specifically, Shenmue 3, we go straight to the stamina bar. The series in general, it is too in depth. It is too in depth for what the technology is, and that is exactly why everyone needs to play it. And that's exactly why it's a good game to play. It's a good game to experience.
Yeah, okay, so like back to Shenmue. So what you're describing to me so far, what it sounds like is a really great sounding story setup. Like a really great motivation for the player to want to play the game because they want to see the story and they want to figure out who the dude is, you know? But then you get into playing it, and it sounds like they're striving for a level of like they really want it to be super immersive, and they think that, whether this is right or wrong, they think that immersion is like the tedium of everyday life, and so what you actually do in the game ends up being kind of tedious.
It's very tedious, but it's not like tedious in the way that it depends on the game. Again, different things are tedious about different games. I'm gonna say the first game is the best, in general. The second game, the worst, and the third game, second best. Tedium is present in almost everything you do in Shenmue. It's kind of like what makes it build character and why you keep going, because you want to see why the game is throwing so much at you. You want to see why, or you want to kind of just be in the shoes of Ryo when he's told to go do this really fucking annoying task, and you want to know why the fuck the game put you through that. And a lot of times the answer might just be, it's something to do in the game. But it's like you don't really know the path to take. Like it's a linear game in that different areas open up at certain times based off of what you do, but it's very non-linear in how you navigate it. You kind of just explore. You see who walks the streets at what times, where people hang out, like what clubs they go to at night, that kind of thing. Like it's when you think about the experience after you've sat down and played it, that's when you kind of really appreciate Shenmue, because it's more about the narrative you follow the entire time. And God, if you want the character of the cult classic, go English. But if you want good voice acting in a game that you really want to follow, do yourself a favor and just do Japanese with subtitles. Have you seen Shenmue?
Not really. I've seen a pretty in-depth review of Shenmue 3, so I've heard someone else's opinion about it.
Was their opinion positive?
No.
It was negative then.
It was very negative.
I think there's two kinds of people. There's people who are going to say something like that, like it's very negative, And then there's going to be the crowd of people who go, yep, play it and buy it. I assume most of the not good things that person reviewed was mostly dealing with the mechanics of the stamina and combat, because that's probably my two biggest gripes.
Well, I mean, so this is someone else's opinion. So let me just relay it to you, and let's hear what you have to say about it, being someone who's actually played the game. So the review that I watched was a guy on YouTube named Super Eyepatch Wolf, and he had a couple things. One thing he took great umbrage with seemed to be the change in combat, in the way that it was changed from being very skill-oriented in Shenmue 1 and 2 to something that is very stats-oriented in Shenmue 3.
Yeah, that's
so
spot on.
Yeah. So instead of getting better at the game, thus getting better at martial arts, thus being able to kick guys' asses, instead it was a game about grinding up your stats.
And it's the worst part by far, the fact that I chose to stream it. Because, my God, man. There's a part, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a part in the game where I was stuck for the longest time because I didn't know whether or not I was, like, because out of exploring everywhere I could, the only plot progression point I could find was when I would go to the local fight arena where people fight for money and, place bets and everything. You're supposed to beat everyone in that area at some point in the game, is what I was told. And I was like, well, nothing else is happening in the game at all right now. Nothing. So I'm in this perpetual state of not making a lot of money, and the money I do make has to go to gambling to use those tokens to enter into the fights. And then, well, hang on. How do I get better at the fights if if all my skills are maxed out? Well, I have to go buy skill books. Well, how do I get skill books? You have to trade herbs for them that you have to then go pick from a field. That part doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, once you get those new skills, you can then go back to grinding at the dojo and doing that one skills input over and over and over and over and over and over. It's very dial-a-combo, i.e. you hit a whole bunch of buttons and you wait for the events to play out. And then you do that for about an hour, and then you do horse stance to increase your stamina. And attack and endurance essentially come together to form what's called your kung fu level. And this is what you're talking about. This is the stats bullshit. I'm sitting there in the game, stuck in a permanent fucking catch-22 situation of I can't get any skills because I can't afford them, or just at this point don't have the herbs for them. So I need to fight and earn money to progress the story. So here we go. I get in the fights. I get real far. And then the difficulty of the fights begin to scale real hard. And then that's when I can just unload a fucking fury of different blows all over an opponent, and maybe they're at 75% health at this point. They hit me once, twice, 3 times, and if they don't ring me out somehow, I'm already dead because they hit way harder. And then you figure out, oh shit, well, there's these things in the games that essentially act like healing potions. It's like a kind of beer, I think. But it's the only food item that you can consume, which is how you get health in the entire game in combat. And those cost about 10.5 times the amount of money normal food costs. So you can't afford it, but when you do grind elsewhere in the game and you can afford it, maybe you can go back to that fight. And then maybe that health potion will give you the stamina you need to beat his ass fully and then get past that fight. You do that. You manage to do that. What happens? There's another fighter. and then another fighter, and they're way more than you, and you have no way of making up that coin deficit to get these eating potions. So you go, fuck. Now that I've spent 25 hours doing this useless shit back and forth, going broke, not being able to afford my stay at the local hotel every night, so now I have to chop wood every morning and get money for that. Now I have to just figure out what the fuck else to do in the game. Oh, hang on. It turns out this thing in your journal that was kind of not hinted at all determined that there's a certain thing that happens over here at a certain point of day, and you go over there and you solve it. It's very fucking frustrating, Shenmue. It's a game that's like Shenmue 3 especially. They took that combat and they just made it dial a combo, and hopefully your stats let it play out, because otherwise you got a couple more hours to waste. And I'm at this point, man, I forgot to save last time. I put about 4 hours into it and turned my PS4 off. I'm at this point I'm too scared to turn it back on to see if the autosave feature got to it. I don't even think the game has an autosave feature.
Gotcha. Yeah. You know, that sounds pretty rough.
You should play Shenmue, though. You should buy it.
I mean, the part of me is curious about the first Shenmue game on Dreamcast.
And the good thing is that's the best one. If the game doesn't get you by the very end of that game, you're not going to like Shenmue.
So here's the deal. 3, I mean, honestly, you describing Shenmue 3 to me, it kind of sounds like a miserable experience, which makes me wonder, what the fuck was wrong with Shenmue 2 that it was worse?
Yes, I'm very happy you asked this. Shenmue 3 is a miserable slog to get through, but it is beautiful. The environment is gorgeous. All the main characters and the women, mostly the younger women, are designed very well. And then other characters are hideous aliens wearing human skin and maybe extra robotic appendages to make it more convincing underneath that skin suit. They're terrifying, and they're exactly... Kudos, though. They're exactly what you would kind of imagine would get drawn into a 3D world in the Unreal Engine when you think about the crazy cartoony anime faces manga faces that are in manga. Like just most outrageous, like pointed, like eyeballs going this crazy from like someone being scared at something, like just like a startled will just be like the most insanely like visual thing. It kind of looks like if that was a person that was walking around, but the person was also an alien robot underneath a skin suit trying to imitate that as a human being. Those that's a pretty good description of the people. Everyone else is designed well.
Okay. So the character designs in Shenmue 2, you're not a fan.
75% of them I'm a fan of. The ones that I'm not a fan of are way too hilarious to not like. And then some characters are just absolutely, I don't want to even talk to that person again, because I'd say that's probably like 2% of the characters so far.
But that's like, is that like the thing about Shenmue 2, or was there more wrong with it?
Shenmue 2 improved, or rather, I should say, added a little bit of they kind of threw you a bone a little bit, because in Shenmue 1, Shenmue 1's difficult at first because you need to learn from the game that you need to be in a certain place at a certain time, and you need to find out where it is. So maybe go check a map or something and figure out where it is on a map, and then figure out, look at your watch and go there at a time. If you don't know where an area is and you can't find the map for that, it can be pretty hard to find that. In Shenmue 2, the environment is much bigger, so they added a little nice quality of life improvement, which was, excuse me, ma'am, do you know where blank is? Yes, I was actually just heading there. Why don't you follow me? Okay, follow, and then you just autopilot. You can just lay the controller down for like the next 10 minutes. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Shenmue 3 doesn't really have like a follow thing as much as I remember, but it's one of those games where it's open world, it's beautiful enough to where you're just gonna want to move around yourself anyway. I wouldn't say it's a thing that I worry about in Shenmue 3, but the thing about Shenmue 2 is Shenmue 2 goes from this very rich and lively Japanese city, well, little Japanese city, like a town, with charming characters everywhere, characters you can decide that you don't like, characters that you want to interact with, characters you don't. Shenmue 3 takes that and says, all the characters here suck. Everyone here is miserable. And this is a lot to do with the historical context of where they are. Not going to spoil the game, but where they are in Shenmue 2 is it was known at one point, I think it still holds the record, as being the most densely populated human populated area on the planet Earth. And I think it was like 30 times the population density of New York City. It got very lawless and very dangerous and very dreary, especially because it's Hong Kong, it's China, there's a lot of smog, all this sort of thing. So you go from this, it's like the environment change. It goes from very beautiful, lively, to very dingy, very gross, and most importantly, brutally repetitive. I felt like at times I was playing a Silent Hill game based off of the environment where I was. And that is not at all paying it a compliment, because in Silent Hill, I haven't played that yet, but I feel like the game probably does a pretty good job of making a spooky environment. This is just spooky by happenstance, and there's not a lot to visually distinguish anything. We have to remember, we're dealing with a game from the first Xbox era. Shenmue 1 is on Dreamcast. Shenmue 2 is on Xbox. It did come to Dreamcast, I want to say, in Japan and possibly Europe. I think it was Europe. But by that time in the U.S., when it released here, the decision was made to just move forward with Xbox, which is good because I think it performs better on Xbox. But it's still early kind of era 3D game where your goal is environment exploration. So, when you're doing 3D environments, especially when you're limited in hardware-wise, I think the general trade-off is how pretty can it be versus how wide open and expansive can it be. Not necessarily today with procedurally generated stuff like Valheim. We had to get it in here somewhere. But back then, yeah, hardware limitation, you had to sacrifice something. And man, the game, not only is the game in a dreary environment, but also the texture repetitiveness gets you lost easily in a place that's not visually compelling. And the challenge is there is a bit that involves QTEs that goes on for a very long time, and the QTEs get very brutal, and there is no checkpoint at all.
So when you mentioned the wide open areas thing, so you're saying that, I'm guessing this means that Shenmue 2 is a game with a lot of small enclosed environments with loading seams between them?
No. Shenmue 2 is wide open, probably but it's twice as wide open as Shenmue 1 is.
Oh,
it's a city
okay.
you're in.
So it's
so you explore a city.
Okay. Gotcha. But the textures are super repetitive.
The textures are repetitive.
It's very easy to get lost.
Oh god, dude, it's super easy to get lost. Again, kind of more on the fault of the design team most likely having gone, how in the fuck do we program something like this? Probably mostly on that, but it's just still, at the end of the day, getting through it is you're not getting through Shenmue 2 unless you, at that point, are a Shenmue fan, in my opinion, because it is rough. Shenmue 3 improved upon a lot of how the game handles, feels, looks, and how you interact with people. But man, I miss that combat system. Fuck the stamina and stats. Yeah. I really, God, that's the worst part about it. But like I said, Shenmue 4 thinks will happen, so saith Yu Suzuki, and it's not going to be like that. It's going to be a little bit more modern with a lot more actual quality of life improvements, which at this point I think is a great decision, because I think had they not programmed Shenmue 3 to look and feel like a classic Shenmue game with all the modern touch-ups, people would have been pissed, like real bad. Even though they know its sister series Yakuza is just a thing, I think they would have been pretty pissed if it didn't stand out as a very uniquely Shenmue game, as only Shenmue could. But I think at this point now that we got all the fan service out of the way, and believe me, there's fan service. There's a whole museum in one town dedicated to just like the people who worked on it and the project. Like there's like paintings, there's photographs of the team. The guest book in your hotel room that you stay in has stuff that people contributed from crowdfunding it. Like there's some YouTubers I follow that are in Shenmue 3's little guest handbook. It's really cool. But yeah, I don't need that anymore. I want to follow Ryo. I want to not hate following Ryo. Give me Shenmue 4 as Yakuza. I think that's that's all I can say.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that you're saying that Shenmue 3 is like such a fan service game, and that they kept so much the same, when also the combat seems like such a huge thing that's changed, you know? So now it's like we want a Shenmue game that is less fan service as far as like the clunky, it's just like the Shenmue that you remember, but we do want the combat back. Like basically what I'm hearing is that if you were gonna modernize Shenmue, you should change a lot of the day-to-day humdrum, tedious kind of bullshit stuff.
No. I would
but
keep
you
that.
Should.
That's so like on brand for Shenmue.
Okay, so what are you saying then that Shenmue 4 will do as far as quality of life improvements?
Reskin Yakuza and give me the tedium of finding people at their certain times of the day. That's what I want.
Oh, okay.
I haven't
Gotcha.
even seen Yakuza. I won't even point that out. I haven't even seen Yakuza. I just well, okay, that's a lie. I have seen it. I've not played it. I've not watched people play it. I've just seen clips, and I go, everyone loves this. This is the same team. They're capable of that. I know they can do it.
Do yourself a massive favor, and once you beat Shenmue 3, play Yakuza 0.
I'm going to.
It's on PC, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to play Yakuza at some point, because I want to support like developers I love in general. There's another. This isn't related to Shenmue 3, but there is something people here in chat have been talking about that reminded me. There's Shenmue Online, and that was supposed to be an MMO. Shenmue Online. It never got released, but it was planned, I think it says here, in 2004. And it was a joint venture between Sega Japan and JC of Korea. I want to say when I heard about this, it was like a card game, which honestly probably wouldn't have done too bad, but I don't think it was a card game. It just says MMORPG, so I guess joining one of three clans led by Shen Hua, Zhu Ying, and Wu Ying Ren. All significant characters from the story. So it looks like there's a weird clan system based off of some side characters of the series. No idea, but it never got released. And then I think there was one more thing. It was like Shenmue Universe. Shenmue City, I'm sorry. It's a social game. Shenmue City is a game in the Shenmue series released for smartphones just in Japan. The game was conceived as a way of relaunching the game franchise by series creator Yu Suzuki. It was announced in the late 2010 for cell phones and for PCs, but only a cell phone version was released. Oh, okay. So it just says mobile phones and Mobage.
Mobage.
Yeah. Apparently Mobage is a platform and a social network for games owned by some company named Dina.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that must be like a Facebook for a different for some other country, right?
It says here Shenmue was conceived when Yu Suzuki noted the popularity of Mafia Wars. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, I'm not going to lie. I would probably play that. It sounds fucking terrible, but I want to play that now. I wish that got made. Shenmue City? Are you kidding me? Okay, anyway.
So it's very interesting what you're describing, because it sounds like none of these games are good, but you like them anyway.
No. From an objective...
Let me
hang on.
rephrase.
From an objective standpoint, I'm going to agree with you, because I'm going to say one I'm going to disagree with. One is good. One is good if you know what you're getting into. Two, yes, you're right. Three, you're half right. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Okay. Well, I was going to just rephrase to say maybe none of these games are enjoyable, because that's at least like more subjective.
They are not enjoyable on accident in the same way that The Room is a funny movie.
Okay.
They are enjoyable on accident in the way that, holy shit, this is ambitious, and I'm fascinated by how this whole experience that I can actually see being visibly pieced together very poorly. It's amazing how much I am invested in continuing along with the storyline. I guess that's the. I'm not going to call it one of those games that's so bad but you can't look away, but I will say it is one of those games where you're from the get-go, when you get even moderately emotionally invested, you're hooked and you don't know why you keep playing. That's what I'll say.
Sure. So the other thing that I've heard about Shenmue 3, being again that I haven't played it myself and have only heard other people's opinions, I've heard that there are a lot of points where the game gates you based on money, where it's like you just need to get some money in order to progress. You need to buy a certain thing or buy something for someone or that kind of thing. So let me ask you, before, what specifically I heard from this person, what is the best way to get money? When the game suddenly says, hey, you need $1,000 for this thing, which is a lot of money, how are you as a player supposed to get it?
So, have you ever, I'm sure you have, Gabe Newell once said, piracy is almost always a service problem. It's essentially the same case in how you get money in Shenmue. You game the game by going, all right, well, if I go over here to this guy who has a gambling game, and I just probability-wise work out, hey, there's a lot of gold that I can put at stake on this bet. That's essentially a 50-50 bet. And I can take it, and I can say, all right, throw it. And if I lose, I'll load my last save game and do it again, and then have a fuck ton of money.
Oh, no!
This
sounds miserable.
Yes, that's the first game, I want to say. The second game... The second game does it a little bit different.
Now, wait, do the first two games also gate you and say, like, you need a bunch of money to continue?
No. No, that's kind of unique to the third game. You can get money.
Okay, because that is what I'm asking about.
Well, what I'll say, yes, I'm sorry. I was going to say the first games are not really an issue there, but in the third game, it's absolutely an issue. In the first game, money is just not as important. I would say, because you're not having to constantly buy food in order to replenish your health.
Yeah.
You need money for things like I got to ride the bus to get to work, shit like that. You need money for I don't know. There's a gotcha figure toy dispenser in town, and I want to collect the whole set. I need like a whole bunch of money to hopefully get all of them, and then you can sell them or trade them. Cute little gotcha things, and there's very, it is very characteristically Japan. Like there's lots of like, I'm speaking like I've been to Japan, but there's lots of street gambling places like pachinko. There's lots of like street places to get food, and there's lots of places where you can. Shit. I lost my train of thought for the thing I was going to say 2 things ago. But yeah, very characteristically Japanese. If you were to imagine, like, I want to walk down this. Okay, best way to put it. Sorry. There's no other game you can play where you go, I want to know what it's like to walk down the street in Japan in 1987 and have it be better projected to you than playing Shenmue. And the thing is, it's still a game from like 1999, so it's rough trying to do all that. But yeah, 3, fuck it. Fuck that system.
So, back to my question. Because I don't think you answered it. So in Shenmue 3, it is uniquely a problem where the game often says,
you
"Hey, you
need
need
cash.
$1,000 to get to the new objective." So what is the best way to get?
Oh, in
money
Shenmue 3, yes.
3?
So I was going to say it's to a lesser degree in Shenmue 3. The same thing in the first one. What you do is you find someone who tells fortunes. Not just any kind of fortunes, but specifically the kind of fortune teller that gives you a lucky color. Because once you follow the pattern of that color in your life, well, you'll have better luck. So you then take your color fortune. Your lucky color is blue, Dash. Well, have a good day. Fuck off. So you go, blue. And then you go to the gambling area. And then you go, well, there's this game where this guy it's essentially a game of roulette, except it doesn't spin. He just kind of casts in I think it was like a marble or something. Anyway, casts it in, and it's 4 colors. And he goes, yo, what color do you want? And you go, oh, shit, blue. So you put it on blue, and the game actually statistically makes it like 75% chance you're going to win that bet. And then you just save your game, max bet, do it again. Save your game, max bet, do it again. Do it one more time. If you fail, go back to the fortune teller lady, get a different color, and then go do it again. And you have to do that over and over again. And then you leave that area, and then the dynamic changes. You have to figure out how to get money in the next area, and it's a bitch. I hate it.
So, and from what I've heard also, this isn't just a case of like, quick get the fortune, then quick do the bet. It's got that, like, I almost want to say like the Nintendo, like the Animal Crossing problem of it's not a quick menu. It's you approach a person and a cutscene starts and, oh, how are you today? I'm good. So you're a fortune teller. Yes, I tell fortunes. Perhaps you could tell me my fortune. Well, today, yada yada. It's like a minute-long cutscene for them to get to. Blue is your color, right? And then, because you can't sprint in this game without losing health, you have to walk your slow ass over to the gambling area, and then you go in there, and then you start a new cutscene with that guy. Oh, good day for betting, huh? What color would you like on the thing? Another 30-second cutscene to initiate the bet. He throws the marble in. It takes fucking 30 seconds for the thing to go around the bowl. You can't skip any of this. Right? This is like so it's not like just that what you're doing is dumb. Like, you're talking about this like martial arts story
Yes.
where you want to track down this guy who killed your father. So but what you actually do in the game is walk back and forth between a fortune teller and a gambler to try to get money?
Food for the fights that aren't related to that at all. Or maybe to just impress this person in the village and have them take them under your wing and teach you the next ability you need to advance on to the next area or defeat another NPC or a couple town bullies or something. Yeah, pretty much exactly like that. When you described the dialogue just now, if you could imagine yourself as an old woman, same voice, by the way, you don't need to change it at all. Old woman. And you were being mechanically driven by the xenomorph underneath your skin. That's about what Shenmue 3 is like.
Yeah, just like really, from what I've seen, just like super, it's like a dream.
A fever dream.
Like a weird dream. The dialogue in the games, just the way that people talk and like the amount of pause between each line of dialogue that's just slightly awkward all the time and that kind of thing.
That's part of its brand though. Like the really bad English voice acting, like and listen, Corey Marshall is not a bad voice actor. It's just he now, he's Ryo and Ryo is Ryo forever. And I don't think you could hire anyone else to do that. As bland as a map. When you walk up to a map, there's actually that dialogue that you have to go through. Oh my God. So what you just said, again, with cutscenes being unnecessary, in Shenmue 3's defense, you can mash A through it. You can get through right to the end. But it does exist, and it is annoying. But when you're in the first game, when you're in your house and you need to leave to go into town for the day, this is probably a little bit of Japan Simulator, like kind of like I said a little bit earlier, but it's also that real unnecessary cutscene shit. When you walk down the hall, okay, here's the walls that you see when you walk through the house. I'm gonna come out from this hallway towards you because you're where the front door is. But there's a step here and like a little area around here for shoes. Every time you take one step, because it's only one step to that level, that one step is a cutscene every time. To take and then you put your outside shoes on. Every time you go in and out of your house.
Yeah. There's like a seam on the floor that when you step over it, there's a cutscene of you walking over that spot. And is it because he has to put his shoes on or take his shoes off or switch shoes?
Yeah, switch for shoes. Well, in Japan, you have inside shoes and outside shoes. Yeah, switching shoes to the outside shoes. But also, I think the game's programming might use it as like a cue point of has Ryo's file equal done event X at this time yet? Well, if then, this character will come out and say, "Hey, I got something for you to see. Let's come over here and do this." It might because cutscenes do happen right there. Because like that's actually like a logical point to put that in. Hey, I'm Ryo. I'm gonna walk through over here and I'm leaving. Oh, hey, before you leave, XYZ, it makes sense. But that's like the minority of the time though. So the majority of the time you're just robot walking to the door and then shoes and then okay, now I can do the thing I'm doing. It's enough to drive you crazy if you don't know what you're getting into. You have to know.
Well, and so it's a cutscene to get up onto this thing, and then is it a different cutscene then to open the door and leave?
Yes, and also in reverse. I didn't mention that. It's cutscene to open the door. It's cutscene to go to the step, put your inside shoes on, take your outside shoes off, not necessarily in that order, and then walk up the step, and then now you're back in your house. It's a process.
Right.
It's almost like an airlock.
And then also when you're leaving after you walk 5 feet away, then there's also a cutscene of you saying goodbye to your lady friend,
no,
right?
unfortunately, no. That doesn't happen. Rio is real fucking terrible with women. Real terrible.
Oh, okay.
And you don't even really notice that until the third game too. You can do the dialogue options, but like they don't seem impactful enough, like to the conversation, because it's just so awkward, and the lines are just so awkward in the first two games. It seems a lot more impactful in human like conversation, and that's kind of the bummer though. All those old characters, the full voice acting team didn't return. And a lot of them aren't even in the game. They're just pre-recorded telephone conversations that Rio has with that character to provide the player with some closure as to what's going on in the story. Like, hey, yeah, so and so's in this country, like they said they'd be. They're living their life now. That's what they're doing. Hey, here's the guy that you loved, that one NPC that you really fucking loved from the first game. Dude, listen to what he's doing now. It's kind of that sort of thing. And you have to pay to use the phone. You have to pay for phone cards. Just another thing that you have to spend money on in that game. And god damn it, the woman that you have to pay to get that phone working, to use it, is also the same woman who runs the hotel. And my god, if you see a picture of her, just know that that's... Oh, a human shouldn't look like that. Like I can't believe they made that one of the most common interactable NPCs in the game. And often not by your own choice. She forces you to chop wood to pay for your debt if you don't have money. And then you have to chop more wood later on to make more money. It's a really good game.
Yeah, there you go. So that's Shenmue 3 and a little bit of 1 and 2.
I just needed to provide the context, yeah, because I don't think Shenmue 3 is a game that you can play and then just all of a sudden be into. Like, it is not one of those games that you go, hey, I heard Shenmue's great. Maybe I should buy this new PS4 game. It's what I got. I sure don't have a Dreamcast or anything. They made HD remakes on the PS4, so that's a non-issue, but you need to start with 1 and then 2 and 3.
Oh, you can actually play Shenmue 1 and 2 on PS4?
That's the way I played.
Oh, yeah, they're out on PC now also.
On Steam,
aren't they?
Oh,
Okay.
I don't know if it's Steam or Epic. There was a big debacle on its release.
Right, because Shenmue 3 was a Epic game, right?
So here's the thing. Right. They crowdfunded it. It exploded because Shenmue. And then later on, they announced...
they promised Steam keys.
Yeah.
Like for people who were backing the Kickstarter, one of the rewards for backing the Kickstarter would be, we'll give you a Steam key specifically when the game comes
out. I think... I'm pretty sure there was also, like, mention of... Now, there was something else with the physical PC edition that was supposed to ship that then couldn't happen. I think they eventually resolved that. I can't remember. But yeah, they then at some point after all those promises had been made, I think Epic Game Store just gave them a much better deal on what their cut would be. And that's not the only thing. It's happened kind of a lot.
I don't think it's just the cut thing. I think the Epic thing is that they get a lot up front.
Okay.
Because that's the defense of like the Epic exclusivity kind of thing for indie developers, is that like if you're an indie studio making a game and Epic offers you exclusivity, generally they're giving you, from what I've heard, what usually happens is they're giving them so much money up front for that exclusivity deal that their game is an automatic hit. Or by hit, it means they recouped their costs, or they made profit, or basically they don't have to worry about launch day. Is our game going to sell enough to be worth it? They've already secured that money from Epic. And then on top of that, Epic's cut is more favorable than Steam's is. So that's the defense, like, in favor of Epic, right? But Shenmue is a game that already got a shitload of money on Kickstarter, and then also they got Deep Silver to publish it. So, like, why on top of all that do they also need Epic exclusivity?
I really don't know. I don't actually know too much about Deep Silver as a publisher, but what's significant about that?
I've had pretty negative experience with Deep Silver
okay.
mostly. First time I heard their name was that game Dead Island, which was like fine, that game, except it had some bugs that were pretty awful. My roommate at the time, he played Dead Island for like 100 hours and his save file corrupted. And then he just started the game over and played it for another 100 hours, and then his save file corrupted again. Now, that doesn't have much to do with Deep Silver, but that was like when I first kind of heard their name. But I just always seem to see their name coming up on like shady, shitty things. Like Mighty Number 9 was the other one.
That was
again.
Them?
Well, they only published it. But again, this was another thing where it's like Mighty Number 9 was a game that asked for, these numbers aren't exactly right, but it was something along the lines of they asked for $200,000 and got like $9 million, right? From Kickstarter. So why then did they need a publisher, you know? Like that kind of thing is super weird. And who was it? Oh,
well, the thing
Deep
is,
Silver.
a publisher is going to have a lot more connections to supply chains and retail stores, I think, than the average just developer company will have.
Yeah,
so they probably just needed the expertise and then their normal.
So there is an element of that. Like, that's why the orange box has an EA logo on it.
Oh, yeah, I never even thought about that.
If you have the actual... Or like Portal 2, right? Because even though Valve can release the game on Steam themselves, as far as actually getting a copy onto store shelves, they just had EA handle
I didn't
that,
know that.
So there is an element of that.
Yeah. I mean, God, and what a good deal that was. Dude, do you remember when the orange box came out? That I don't think there was ever a better value in gaming at the time. Like,
it was nuts. That was actually around when I first got into
PC
me too.
gaming.
Because, growing up, I didn't have a powerful PC. We just had the family computer. And we didn't get very many games for it. I had a couple. Like, I played a lot of StarCraft, the first one, right? But didn't really play very many computer games growing up. But then when I got a gaming PC for the first time, it was right around the time that the orange box came out. And holy shit, what an introduction to PC gaming. Half-Life 2, Portal, and Team
on the
Fortress
Source
2.
engine too. It's like the most, at the time, it was like one of the most optimized, great game engines to build a game on.
Yeah, the game ran so
Every game
well.
was smooth as shit. Team Fortress 2, I still think Team Fortress 2 might have the most hours logged for any game for me. I played so much TF2.
It's easily top 5 for me. Team Fortress 2 is like so throughout high school, my friends and I, every night we were up until like 2 a.m. playing Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, me too.
And then we'd get just a few hours of sleep before having to get up for school the next day. But it was like every night, Team Fortress 2 on voice chat, 24/7 Dust Bowl only servers.
God.
Dude, Dust Bowl is the best multiplayer map of any game of all time.
Wait, Dust Bowl. That's the one. That's a control point map, right?
Yeah. Well, so it was like attack and defense. Where there were control points, but it wasn't.
They unlocked
a tug of war. Right? Yeah. Like it was there. Stage 1, there's 2 control points. The defense starts with them, and the offense has to capture both.
I like this.
And once they do, then you move on to stage 2. Then you.
That's
move
a
on to
good
stage
game
3,
mode,
right? That's. Yeah. So that's attack and defense. I think when you say control points, I think that specifically is the maps that have 5
that's
control
what I'm
points.
Thinking about.
and you have to push and pull until you push the other team all the way back. That mode was awesome.
When Payload came out,
when
Payload came out, I was like, this is the most addicting way I have ever played first-person shooter games ever. What a fantastic game.
Yeah. Man, Team Fortress 2 went through such a story. Because when it first came out, there were only like 6 maps, but they were all bangers. And the only modes were attack, defense, and control point, and deathmatch, and capture the flag.
Do you play deathmatch?
And I think that was not. I didn't. That was probably what I did the least.
Because Team Fortress 2, its deathmatch is very popular, but I have never been the kind of person that plays it for that. It's not the kind of game for TF2 for me.
Yeah, it's always been a much more objective-oriented game, and that's where classes like the Engineer get so interesting.
My best class,
the way that they can use the objectives. Yeah, I should ask, what was your most played class?
By far, Engineer. By far.
Same here, dude.
It
Same
is such
here.
That is no one everyone underestimates the Engineer, the Engineer's role. Everyone thinks, okay, Engineer. All right, get a dispenser in the front line. Put a fucking turret here to make sure we can keep this area covered and we can manage the area. No. Engie's primary purpose is teleporter and teleporter and teleporter and teleporter. Get the wrench that lets you put a teleporter out ASAP, and then you will have won the game if you get the other end out way earlier than the other team can. You just get such an advantage from that movement speed that it's like the turret. I don't even use that. I use that little stupid dinky little mini turret that you get when you have the robotic arm weapon, because that thing does a better job of just annoying the piss out of someone than the full-size turret where you go, oh shit, I can't be over here or I'm going to die. You do that and they're distracted. And when they're distracted, you can just go in and fucking clean them up with a shotgun while you're just making sure your teleporter is just literally never having downtime. Just whoop, teleport, whoop, just the whole front line getting to where you want them to be way sooner than the opponent can. It's the whole point of the game. And it's
especially when you're the attacking team. When you're an offensive Engineer, that's where teleporters are even more.
That was my specialty too, offensive NG. People said it couldn't be done, but I proved them wrong. I was like, I don't care. I'll make 10 dispensers and throw them on the fucking bomb or something. But I'll make it so people are healthy when they stand around the bomb. You encourage behavior.
So speaking of the robotic hand thing, when Team Fortress 2 first came out, I mentioned it only had a few maps and it only had a few game modes. Payload wasn't even a thing yet. Also, every class was set. The Engineer didn't have the hand thing, right? The Engineer had the shotgun, the pistol, and the wrench, and that was it. The medic had the flechette launcher, the regular-ass medigun, and the regular-ass bone saw, right? And that was it. Every class just had their specific loadout. There were no hats. There were no alternative cosmetics. Every class looked a certain way, and they played a certain way. And very few maps, very few game modes. And I loved that. Absolutely loved it. And then Payload came out, and just like you're saying, holy shit, Payload was fun. Just how well they designed it, where first of all, the idea of it's the opposite of capture the flag, right? Where you're trying to bring a thing into the enemy base. But then it's got all this design around it, where the way that the track is laid out is a set path, so the enemy knows how to defend against it. Their, scouts push twice as fast as other things.
It works so together. Well.
There are incline, if nobody touches it for too long, then it starts moving backwards. There are uphills that if nobody's touching it, they fall back down. So you have to get it. There's so many nuances to the design.
All the characters going, push the fucking cart.
Yeah.
All the dialogue.
Oh man, get on the cart, Doomkopfs. Just so good. And then so Payload was amazing. They came out with that arena mode that I thought was pretty fun also. As far as deathmatch goes, I did think that arena was pretty fun. That was the one where it's like deathmatch, but
it's like Capture
no
the Flag, or King of the Hill, rather. Wait, no, hang on. Arena, I'm thinking of a different thing now.
Arena's kind of like Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
It's like 5-on-5 or whatever, and there's no respawn, so it's like real quick rounds of deathmatch. I thought that was pretty fun, and then King of the Hill was a mode that was added later also. So all of that was great, and that's why I played the game for years, and like just hours and hours, you know. But then they started to add new weapons and like an inventory system and like new loadouts for each of the characters. The first one being, I want to say the first one was the medic, wasn't it?
Was it the bone saw? Or was it no, it might have been the Kritzkrieg.
Well, it was those three at once.
So
the first update hit. The first update hit, and the idea was we're going to add a second slot to every class, one at a time. And the first one was medic. So instead of the regular Fichette launcher, you could get I think it was called the Blutsauger, which was like the Flechettes would heal you, but it couldn't get crits. There was the Kritzkrieg, which didn't make your partner invincible, but instead made them get all crits. And then there was the Uber Saw, which I don't even remember what the downside of it was.
I think there was target out my ass, but I think there was a slight loss to movement speed.
Okay. Yeah, but it charged up your Uber when you hit someone with. And it was like, okay, so they added new stuff to the game. All right, fine. You know, they're pretty well balanced, and it's just, you know, it's still a similar effect, but it added some spice to the game, you know. And then they did that with every character, you know. They added the Force of Nature for the Scout.
And you didn't think they were very balanced, I guess? You're saying you're not a fan of this, because I was a huge fan.
So I did like it at first, because I thought that they were pretty well balanced, and the classes still played pretty much the same. And, you know, it was just one extra option for each character. It was kind of nice. Then, though, I think that they started to go too far and make it too bloated, right? Nowadays, it's like you've got this whole fucking backpack inventory system where you're getting multiple of different things. There's hats and shit and other cosmetics. Every class has like 10 different primary weapons that they might be using that do different things. There's the crafting system. And there's a crafting system. And, like, it's just too much bullshit now. Yeah. As in, like, nowadays, I feel like, first of all, it's a system that makes it so that a lot of players aren't playing the game anymore, and a lot of people are just idling all the time when you're in a game, and people are there just not even playing anymore. I remember the idle servers. But then also, but then also you got issues where, like, I just feel like it's no longer a game where you can see there's a heavy, a medic, and a scout. We got to think about how we're going to deal with this. Instead, it's like, first of all, I don't know what classes they are immediately because they're all wearing silly hats. So it's like harder to identify them. And then also now, like, you don't really know exactly, you don't have a very great idea of what weapons they're using and how you're going to deal with that. Instead it takes so much more time to identify the enemy and how to deal with them. I don't know.
It sounds
too much
like
variance.
Okay, well, so I'm going to agree in that the game's stuff, the system, the crafting system, the items, it got to be too much for what it was, because the crafting system is just this annoying, boring menu-based crap, and you just have to grind for it. But I will defend it as the one game I've been always okay with when it came to the loot box mechanic. I never really cared too much about loot boxes, but I loved doing loot box events. Like, say, because I'm a huge sucker personally for like Halloween in general. So like all the haunted costumes and stuff like that typically only were bound to someone based off of the hat, which brings me to my next point. I enjoy those a lot. The hats are one of you brought this up when you said it's harder to tell what class someone is now because they all have silly hats on. But that's the thing I would argue against. I would say the hats were one of the best things they could have done because it brought some customization and some character and some light and color to a game that had been very stagnant for a long time, that also has a very high player base that Valve obviously wants to retain. It brought the perfect solution to that in that it gave you a customizable option that doesn't change the overall look or profile of the character, like, say, like the game's copy, Overwatch. You can change entire costumes in Overwatch. There's like whole different outfits and everything that very well could change your perception of what character you're about to fight, which it can be a good or bad thing. It's cool. I'd like to wear a costume that makes me think I'm a demo man when I'm actually like, I don't know, a soldier or something. Soldier, the one with the rocket launcher, not like soldier in
Yeah, that's a good point. Right. Like the overall build of the characters kind of stays the same. You kind of know how tall they all are and how girthy they all are. So
the lab coat's gonna stay the same on the medic.
The hats are definitely less intrusive than something like an entire outfit change. I do agree.
And do you know what was the craziest thing about it? People went fucking bonkers over hats. Do you know why? Because of partly of what I just said. It's the tiniest bit of character you're allowed to show as your character in a match now for the first time ever. But they made them hard as shit to get. So like there was this huge explosion of demand of exclusivity of shit people didn't even know they wanted. It was such a good idea. And I fully admit, I definitely went to work in the daytime, went to school at nighttime, and my poor gaming PC was probably running at 80 degrees Celsius just trying to cool down in the idle server the entire time because it worked. I didn't have to pay money for loot boxes. I could just be in the game and get it, and then like eventually maybe one day I could have a hat, or something super special. But in terms of all the other items that they added that kind of changed the game up, like you said, like it actually did, it made it so they didn't have to add characters to an already established roster. And I know in TF2 they added characters from TF1, or they split up characters. Like I think the NG did different things in TF1, and I don't think there was a spy, and I don't think there was a scout. I didn't play TF1, so I'm not sure, but I don't think they had all the classes.
Yeah, I didn't really play it much.
I've heard
either.
It's nowhere near as good as TF2, but damn it, man, it's such a good, perfect formula, and they made it so they don't need to add characters like it's a fighting game to spice a fighting game up or something like that. It's just they made an option for a character to serve an almost entirely different purpose while still fulfilling the same role, which is fucking cool. It's like the spy. Okay, well, his whole thing is for a limited amount of time he can be invisible in the game unless you bump into him on accident, and then after that time he'll be gone. Or you can wear this watch, and this disguise watch will make it so you never lose the ability to be invisible as long as you're staying still. And if you stay still, it'll recharge the battery. And as long as the battery's full, you can be invisible when you move. So you can be a little bit less mobile a scout, a little bit more campy. You can get your backstabs in with an alternate knife that instead of like doing instead, I think there's this one knife that makes it so you instantly camouflage yourself as the player you just backstabbed. So it's like It's pretty cool. Or you can use this other item that when you die, it looks like you just had low health and that person just killed you when really you just instantly became invisible and like you had a ragdoll of your own character behind you just fall on the ground and the game acts like that person got a kill. It's cool. It never changes the functionality of the spy. And I would argue the other items don't really change the functionality of the other classes either, except fucking demo men who just use the giant fucking freedom sword and just want to charge and targe people now.
That's what I had the most.
Because that
issue
changes
with
the demo man for sure.
Yeah, the charge and targe on the demo man with the sword, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that was what I took the most issue with, because most other stuff, you're right, that like it doesn't change the function of the class all that much. It just adds a little bit of spice to it that's generally pretty well balanced and a lot of the time kind of a good idea. Like the other spy invisibility, to keep going with that, there's the one where you can't be there's the one where when you take damage then you turn invisible, but to other players it drops a fake corpse on the ground. So it looks like they killed you, but really you just turned invisible. So stuff like that is cool. But man, yeah, like the fucking swords on the demo man and stuff. I think that is just specifically the thing.
I understand that. I think it's a very fair point. But I don't even. Despite that, that game had me coming back for at least 1,000 hours. I think I have over 1,000 hours in that game. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, sir, that's a third game I didn't think we were going to talk about. But did you want to add anything else?
I don't think so. I'm feeling good.
Well, guys, I think that's going to be our podcast. I am InvictvsNox. He is DashRetro. You can find him on twitch.tv/DashRetro. And for your Twitter is twitter.com/DashRetroTTV. Or DashRetro TV. That's right. All right, cool. And I'm InvictvsNox everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Oh, God, I just started trying to do TikTok. You can find me on TikTok there, too. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the places I'm InvictvsNox. Appreciate y'all for listening. Thanks for the download if y'all are listening later. And if you don't mind, if you're on Apple, just giving us a little bit of a rating if you don't mind. Spotify, I think you can do it there, too. We'll have these episodes up shortly. Appreciate y'all listening, and peace out. Boop. And Audacity is...
Oh. Let's do another sync clap. This way you can see the time discrepancy and perhaps sync it up this way, by looking at the first clap and the second and getting...
Well, I've already stopped the video, so does that matter?
Yeah, you'll do it with the Audacity files, right? Probably.
All right, what are we doing? All right,
20.
Here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I feel like ours were off.
Well, they were the first time.
They were way closer in my ear. Let's do 40. Let's do 40.
Well, okay, all right.
Yeah, see?
All right.
All right, I'll stop the Audacity now.